Shabbat Shalom, family. Shabbat Shalom. So good to see you all today on the West Coast, at least on the West Coast here. It is close to Shabbat. We got probably another close to an hour before we enter into Shabbat. Listen, y'all, it is going down tonight. I promise you, live and direct. I'm super excited about tonight's teaching. Unfortunately, we missed yesterday, Thursday night, for a discussion with our parashah. However, we are going to make it up tonight, and we'll be right back here, same place, same channel at 10 a.m. All right, so we're going to open up Shabbat tonight with, in my opinion, I always feel like it's a dynamic teaching. Whenever, not because of the teacher, but because of the content, because of the word of Yah. Whenever you open up the scriptures and you're teaching the word, it is definitely dynamic, a dynamic experience, an encounter that I pray that you will get something out of tonight. And the thing that I hope that you do tonight mostly is to go back and check to see if those things that I'm saying is actually absolutely true, and be critical of the teaching. Don't just accept it because it sounds good and it's coming from me. But what I want you to do, I want you to take notes. That's the only way you can do that. You can't just sit there and listen and think that you're going to get something out of it that's going to last you beyond today. Okay? And so what I would like you to do is to be like the Bereans in Acts chapter 17 that Paul describes, who went back to check to see if those things that Paul said indeed were truly the word of Yah. And so, guys, I want to jump right in tonight. I hope you have your Bible. I hope you have something to write with. You are going to need to take notes tonight, y'all. You're going to need to take notes tonight. I always say that every week. And so it's like crying wolf, right? Little boy that cried wolf, But tonight you're really going to need them. That should be your mindset. Should be your heart set. That whenever there's teaching going on, you want to take notes. I don't know about you, but if you're struggling with understanding the word, if you're struggling with like remembering the concepts, you got to take notes. There's no two ways around it. I can only encourage you. I can only tell you, then the rest is up to you. All right. So guys, let's jump right in tonight with our lesson. You can see what it is. On your notes, you should be copying the same thing you see on the screen now, just to be organized. And we're going to jump right in. So the scriptures tonight are Matthew chapter 5, verse 18. Let's go there really quick. Matthew chapter 5, and we're going to start with verse 18. Go ahead and type in the chat if you know what this chapter, actually chapters 5 through 7. If you know what chapters 5 through 7 are traditionally called, go ahead and type that in the chat. Go ahead and type that in the chat. So we're going to drop down to verse 17, actually. We're going to read verses 17 through 20. Okay. So Matthew chapter 5, verse 17 through 20. The word of Yah reads, "Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least of these commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Verse 20, for I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. All right. And so, guys, tonight I want to jump right in to this lesson, y'all. I want to jump right in to this lesson, and I want to deal with as a series. I'm thinking of making this I don't know if it's going to be weekly, maybe monthly series called Addressing Missing Links in Doctrine. And the idea behind that series topic is all of us, really, we have blind spots. We do. If we were to be honest, if every teacher of the word of Yah were to be honest, we don't know everything. We say this phrase, y'all. We say things like this. I don't know everything. I haven't attained to knowing everything about the scripture. But we don't act like that when we're teaching. We don't act like that when we're studying. We don't act like that when we're in a debate or a conversation. And so we have to really take the mask off and to be honest with ourselves and say, you know what? I have some missing links in my doctrine. Now, some people say, well, with the essentials, I don't. Well, see, that attitude is going to rob you. It could rob you of being open to a missing link. That's actually a blind spot. You don't know it's a missing link. You don't know if the statement is true. I don't know everything about the word. I'm going to be a lifelong learner of the word. If there is learning yet to be done, can we be humble enough to at least practically, while we're studying or having a conversation, and this is a challenge for me too, say, you know what? Let me consider the fact that there could be something that I'm not understanding or something that could be missing that could add to my understanding. And so tonight, I want to deal with two broken legs. Yes. What happens if you break two legs on a person? They won't be able to walk, obviously, right? So I want to deal with y'all tonight. There are two legs that I'm going to break when it comes to a Christian or Christianity's understanding of two different areas. All right. We're going to break those legs tonight, y'all. All right. And so many Christians believe that because of the death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua HaMashiach, the new covenant, leg one, has replaced the old covenant. That's a note you should write down. That is a critical note that you should write down. Many Christians believe that because of the death, burial, and resurrection of Yeshua HaMashiach, or Jesus the Messiah, the new covenant, which is leg one that we're going to break tonight, replaced the old covenant, completely replaced it, simply because of the death, the burial, and resurrection of Yeshua. Now, depending on the interpretation of Hebrews 8, verses 7 and 8, which we'll get to. Actually, you know what? Let's go there right now. Let's go there right now. So depending on your interpretation of Hebrews chapter 8, verse 7 and 8, watch this. For if the first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for a second one. Depending on your interpretation of that. Actually, it's verses 7 and 13. In that he said, a new covenant he hath made, the first old. Let me read that again. In that he saith, a new covenant he hath made, the first old, which is the old covenant. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. And so let me go back to this. Right? So, depending on your interpretation of Hebrews chapter 8, verse 7 and verse 13, okay, the impact on Christian theology as it relates to all kinds of topics, namely covenants, Shabbat, the law, the Torah, answering questions like, do Christians have to follow the Torah or the law today? Depending on your interpretation of Hebrews 8, verse 7 and 13, could have a significant impact on Christian theology as we know it, requiring the person who practices Christianity to readjust to the relevance of the law in the believer's life today. That's deep, y'all. I want y'all to know that this is depending on their interpretation of Hebrews 8, verse 7 and 13, can have a significant impact on their views that they previously held regarding covenants, new covenant, old covenant, the role of the law in the believer's life today, the role of the Torah, and so many other issues related to feast days and practicing the Torah today. In addition, if Matthew 5 and 18, okay, we just read Matthew. Okay, so let's look at Matthew 5 and 18 one more time just to refresh our memories. Okay. Matthew 5 and 18 says, for verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Okay. So again, depending on the interpretation of Hebrews 8 and 7 and verse 13, and if Matthew 5 and 18 is an idiom, which is leg 2. Okay, so you should have both legs written down. Leg 1 is the new covenant. Leg 2 is Matthew 5 and 18 an idiom? And if it is an idiom, the meaning is forever. Something that lasts forever. It's describing the law which lasts forever as an idiom. Now, you got to understand the difference between an idiom and a figure of speech. All right, are you ready? You should be taking notes on this. Number one, an idiom is culturally bound. In other words, you can only understand idioms if you are a part of a particular culture. Come on, go with me, y'all. That's an idiom. You can only understand idioms if you are a part of the particular culture that uses that idiom. Figures of speech. What's the difference? Anyone can understand a figure of speech. Okay? Anyone can understand a figure of speech. It's not culturally bound. All right? And so let's see. What's an example of a figure of speech that anyone can understand. Doesn't matter what culture you're from. Figures of speech uses things like metaphors, similes, things like that. You can hyperbole, which is exaggeration, personification, which is taking something that is not living and assigning personhood to it. For example, my pen must have just got up and walked out of the room. Okay. Anyone can understand that. You don't have to be in any particular culture to understand that figure of speech. Okay. Can anyone think of another figure of speech that anyone, no matter what culture you are, will understand? A figure of speech that anyone can. I know. I'm calling for participation, but hey, that's what I do. That's what I do, just to make sure you are, I mean, we can make up one, right? Very easy. Your mind is as bright as the sun. Come on. I mean, just simple things like that. Okay. Now, is that a metaphor or simile? Who knows? Type it in the chat. Okay. Or here's another figure of speech. The whole world is a stage. Okay. Figure of speech. No matter what culture you're from, you can understand that. However, when we get back to let's see. Yes, when we get back to Matthew 5:18, which states, "For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled." Now, you have to understand and decide, is this to be taken literally or figuratively? If, come on and go with me here, 5:8, if Matthew 5:18, y'all, is an idiom, I want y'all to understand this. If Matthew 5:18 is indeed an idiom, which is the second leg, it's going to challenge the idea that the old covenant is entirely obsolete and believers are no longer under the law. It's going to challenge that idea, y'all. You mean with just one passage? That's a leg. It's not just one passage. It takes two. Let every matter be established with 2 to 3 witnesses. I'm giving you 2 witnesses today. 2 important pillars, 2 legs that Christianity stands on in determining the relevance of the law in believers' lives today. That's one leg, whether this is an idiom or not. The second leg is the new covenant. Because remember, they say the new covenant replaces the old covenant based on Hebrews chapter 8, verse 7 and 13. If Matthew 5:18 is taken literally, then it validates the end of the law's applicability to believers' lives today. If, watch this, if Matthew 5:18 is to be taken literally, y'all, that means that we are no longer under the law, that their interpretation of that is correct, but under grace, that we no longer have to keep the laws if Matthew 18 is to be taken literally. And if it's taken literally, it's going to align with everything that Christians believe about the law. that the Old Testament, the Old Covenant, I should say, which is found in Exodus 19 and 20, specifically in chapter 20, it's been done away. What does Hebrews 8 and 13 say? Specifically, it says, Hebrews 8 and 13, I want to quote it from the actual scriptures. Hebrews 8 and 13 says, in that he saith, a new covenant he hath made, the first old. Now that which is decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away. That means to get rid of it. So there's a lot at stake tonight, y'all, that we're going to deal with. I want to jump right into this. Y'all ready? Y'all got y'all pens? You got your notepads? You ready to go in? Let's get it. So in order for us to understand these two legs that are very important, y'all, in order to understand, before we break them, we have to do a detailed analysis. So a detailed analysis is a must. All right. We're gonna be doing critical thinking. We're going to look at scripture. We're going to look at extra biblical literature. We're going to look at his history. We're going to look at church fathers. We're going to look at the Talmud. We're going to look at various sources. Because if we're going to analyze it, we can't just have a limited view and a limited scale of information that we pull from. We have to pull from as many sources that speak to the subject. That is a detailed analysis. And if we're honest, many of us don't do that when we're studying, let alone reading the scriptures. All right. Again, let's start with Matthew 5 and 18. Is it literal or is it figurative? Should the interpretation be literal or figurative? All right. So let's look at the literal view first. Let's look at the literal view. Now, you got to understand that the genre in Matthew is narrative, historical narrative. And usually in historical narratives, you have all kinds of methods that are being used, communication methods that are being used to communicate with people from a specific culture. Okay. And so let's consider the phrase in Matthew 5 and 18, until heaven and earth pass away. All right. So let's look at, again, this is the literal view. We're going to look at this as it's not a part of a figure of speech. It's not an idiom. It is literal. Okay. And so the word pass away, paraleithe. Okay. Paraleithe. It's in the subjunctive mood. First of all, we need to understand that. That means it's the mood of possibility. That means it may or it may not happen. Okay. That's number one. And if you're taking notes, you should write that down. That is an important part of understanding what pass away means, according to Matthew 5 and 18. It's in the subjunctive mode. It means it is the mode of possibility. It may or it may not happen. Okay. It literally means to pass away, to perish, to disappear, to come to an end, and so no longer be there. It means to pass away, disappear, to cease, to exist, to pass away. So when it comes to the heavens and the earth, if you're taking this literally, then you are bound to say that the heaven and the earth are literally going to disappear and no longer exist anymore. That's the literal definition of paraleithe. Okay. Now, where did I get that definition from? Here are my sources. Okay. Those are my sources, where I got them from. Those are pretty scholarly sources, by the way. All right. I just want you to know that these individuals have been studying New Testament Greek probably longer than we've been living. And they're scholars. As a matter of fact, if you use Strong's, if you use Lunita, if you use any kind of lexicon these two gentlemen have probably contributed to those lexicons, or to the teacher. They have taught the individuals who wrote those lexicons. You can look these guys up if you want to. You can Google them and look them up. All right. And so that's where I think that's not my definition. According to Arndt and Bauer and Gingrich, all right, and Lou Nita, according to those individuals, the definition of pass away is right there. So, guys, you can't go to Webster to look these words up. Okay, you can't go to Wikipedia. You can't go to any book that way, because you're not going to get a biblical understanding of what pass away means. Okay, so we have the definition now. Are there any scriptural support for these definitions? See, that's another layer of studying. That's another layer of the method that you need to employ when trying to come to an understanding. So not only do you need to look up the definition according to the lexicon, all right, but you need to compare lexicons. And I did that. I have a program called and it won't show up here. Unfortunately, I don't know how to get it to show up, but Logos is one of the most interesting Bible softwares to get. I recommend that you use it. So now we're going to find out, now that we looked up, we got a scholarly understanding of what the word literally means. Are there any scriptures to back it up? So let's look in the Tanakh, and we're going to go through these scriptures carefully. Let's look in the Tanakh, which is going to support the literal definition of the heavens and earth passing away, being destroyed, disappearing, passing, coming to an end, etc., to cease to exist. So let's go to Isaiah 34 and verse 4. Isaiah 34. We're going to get verse 4. Well, let's just go to verse 1. Come near, ye nations, to hear, and hearken, ye people. Let the earth hear, and all that is in the and all that is therein, the world, and all things that come forth of it. For the indignation of the Lord is upon all nations, and his fury is upon all the armies. He hath utterly destroyed them. He hath delivered them to the slaughter. Their slain also shall be cast out, and their stink, interesting, shall come up out of their carcasses, and the mountains shall be melted with their blood. And all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved. Aha. And the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down, as the leaf falleth off of the vine, and as a falling fig from a tree. Okay, that's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting because it's saying that the heavens and earth are going to be destroyed. All right, now let's go to Isaiah 51 and 6. Now, if you would like these scriptures, hold on. You can copy them down. I'm giving them to you right as we go. Isaiah 51 and 6. Isaiah 51. And I'm for the sake of time, y'all, I'm just going to read the actual verse. You can go back and read from, the context 1 through 6, but I'm just going to read verse 6. Lift up your eyes to the heavens and look upon the earth beneath. For the heavens, watch this, shall vanish away like smoke, and the earth shall wax old like a garment, and they that dwell therein shall die in like manner. But my salvation shall be forever, and my righteousness shall not be abolished. Look, I mean, it tells you right there. The heavens are going to vanish away, and the earth is going to wax old like a garment. All right, you see that? So it seems to be scriptural support, right? I mean, if you're just taking first glance, I mean, it appears like there's scriptural support that the heavens and earth are going to disappear. But let's keep going. Let's continue. Let's go to Psalm 102. Psalm 102 and verse 25. Psalm 102. Verse 25 and 26. Of old hast thou laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the work of thine hands. Verse 26. They shall perish, but thou shalt endure. Yea, all of them shall wax old like a garment. As a vesture shalt you or thou change them, and they shall be changed. Interesting, huh? Now, Psalm 102 says they're going to perish, but then he says, as a vesture. So again, this is a simile, okay? Because he uses like or as. So as a vesture shall you change them. So Psalm 102 is giving us a nuanced idea of what perish means without even looking up the word perish. Just the context of that scripture says they're going to be changed. All right. And let's go to our last scripture in Zephaniah. Zephaniah. Okay. Chapter 1 and verse 18. Zephaniah 1 and 18 says this. The scriptures read, neither their silver nor their gold shall be able to deliver them in the day of the Lord's wrath. But the whole land, look at this, the whole land shall be devoured by the fire of his jealousy. For he shall make even a speedy riddance. Good riddance. You've heard that phrase, good riddance. Make a speedy riddance of all them that dwell in the land. Now, it seems like the Tanakh is supporting the literal definition of Matthew 5 and 18. Until heaven and earth pass away. So we have how many scriptures? We have 4 scriptures. It only takes 2 or 3 to establish every matter. We have 4 that apparently supports the literal definition of heaven and earth passing away, being destroyed, being eliminated, perishing, disappearing, coming to an end, ceasing to exist. All right. Now, that was the Tanakh. Are there any supporting scriptures in the New Testament or the Brit Hadashah? Well, let's go to Matthew 24 and 35. Are y'all writing these scriptures down? Matthew 24. And let's go to verse 35. Again, read the context on your own for the sake of time. I'm just going to read the verse. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Oh, now Matthew 24:35 throws an interesting curveball to Matthew 5 and 18. Because in Matthew 5 and 18, family, watch this. Let's go back to Matthew 5 and 18 because I want to show you something. And usually the interpretation of Matthew 5 and 18 by Christians, many Christians, I shouldn't say all, I shouldn't label all of them, but many Christians will say that if you look at verse 17, think not that I'm come to destroy the law or the prophets. I have not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law to all be fulfilled. So they interpret this verse literally by saying that, yes, one day the heaven and earth are going to disappear, cease to exist. And as a result, so will the law. That's the literal interpretation. Okay. And so that's coming out of Matthew chapter 24, verse 35. It literally says, heaven and earth shall pass away. But then, see, here's the dilemma for how do you explain this second clause, but my words shall not pass away. Now, many people will say, well, the word words here is not referring to the Torah. It's referring to, something else. But we know through scripture that the words that Yeshua spoke are not his own. All the words he spoke, Yeshua even says his Father gave them to him to speak. Now, I did a lesson on that, and we can go to a couple scriptures right now. Just, what's one of those scriptures that I used? Let's see. Okay, John, let's go to John. We can go to John chapter 12 and verse 49. But there are so many others. There's so many other scriptures, and I did teach that. We can go to John 12 and 49, and then John 14 and 10. John. Here, let me use this other. John 12. Again, these two are just right off the top. John 12, 49 and John 12 and 49. For I have not spoken of myself, Yeshua says, but the Father, which sent me, gave me a commandment, which I should say and what I should speak. Okay. And so that's one admonition that Yeshua is saying, that he's not speaking on behalf of himself, but the words that he speaks are from his Father. Now let's go to John 14 and 10. Again, you can read this context, but these scriptures are very clear. Believest thou not that I am in the Father and the Father in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. Okay? So on these two occasions, and there are other scriptures, guys, I don't want to spend time going to each and every one right now, but it affirms heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. Again, my words are not Yeshua's words, they're the Father's. Okay. And so we have another one. Let's go to John. Take you to this one last time. I think it's 14 and 15. Yeah. If you love me, keep my commandments. And so we know that Yeshua, the commandments are not his, but the commandments are the Father's. All right. And so we have to understand this dynamic that if Christians are interpreting Matthew 5 and 18 literally, Let's go back there. If they're interpreting Matthew 5:18 literally, that the law is going to pass away. Okay, till heaven and earth pass away. In other words, as long as the heavens and earth exist, the law will exist. But there will come a time when, again, the heavens and earth are going to pass away, and so will the law. That is the Christian view of Matthew 5:18. Okay, and so they have a dilemma. There's a dilemma they're in. Now, I would love to hear you explain these opposing views. We know your interpretation of Matthew 5:18, but did you consider Matthew 24:35? Okay, because Matthew 24:35 offers a problem. It says, "My words shall not pass away." Again, they're going to have to go and deal with this word that I've highlighted right here. That's the only place they can go. This is their only way of explaining somehow that the words here is not referring to the law. Okay, that's their only, but they're going to have a hard time doing that. I just want to let you know that right now. Okay, because Yeshua says, "I did not come to destroy the law, but I've come to fulfill it." So if he came to fulfill it, what do you think he was teaching? What do you think he was encouraging people to do? And again, you got to look at the context of who Yeshua came to minister to. He said, "I did not come for the Gentiles, but I came to the lost sheep of Israel." Doesn't mean that the Gentiles will not hear the gospel, but Yeshua's ministry was specifically to people from Israel, Israelites, encouraging them to have the correct understanding of the law. So the words that Yeshua was speaking was explaining the law thoroughly to the Israelites. We're going to get to that part. Let's keep going. Because we just went to one verse. Matthew 24:35. All right. So let's go to 2 Peter. 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 3. Again, this is supporting a literal interpretation of "till heaven and earth pass away." Literally is going to disappear, cease to exist. Okay, Peter says this. Peter, again, you know who Peter is. He was one of Yeshua's closest disciples, apostles. He denied Yeshua 3 times. Then he said to Peter, "Will you feed my sheep?" And Peter says, "Thou knowest." Verse 3, "Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lust." And this is what these scoffers are going to say. Where is the promise of his coming? I mean, you believe he's coming back a second time. Where is he? "For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation." No change. Jesus is not coming back. That's just a myth. "For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water. Whoo! Whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. But the heavens and earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men." Now, when he in verse 6, he says, "Whereby the world that was that then was, being overflowed with water." What is he referring to right there? What is Peter alluding to? The flood. Now, let me ask you a question. This is in my notes later, but I'm going to deal with it right now. Did the earth vanish away after the flood? Interesting. Did the earth vanish away, cease to exist after the flood? Of course not. But it was still destroyed, wasn't it? Keep that in mind. We're going to come back to that point. But it says in verse 7 that heavens and earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, but it's reserved unto the fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. You see that? Now let's go to Hebrews chapter 1. See, we have to do a thorough examination, y'all. Hebrews chapter 1. And we're going to look at verse 10, starting verse 10 here. And thou, or and you, Lord, in the beginning, has laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the works of thine hands. Watch verse 11. They shall perish, but thou remainest, and they all shall wax old, as doth a garment. As a vesture shalt thou fold them up, and they shall be changed, but thou art the same, and thy years shall not fail. Interesting. Interesting what Hebrews 1, 10 through 12 is saying. It's saying, verse 10, and you, Lord, in the beginning has laid the foundation of the earth, and the heavens are the work of thine hands. He says, they shall perish. They shall perish. So obviously, the heavens and earth are going to cease to exist. And ultimately, so will the law, according to a Christian interpretation of Matthew 5 and 18, a literal interpretation. Okay, let's go to Revelation 20. Revelation 20 and verse 11. Throne of judgment. As I saw the great white throne. Oh, wait, verse 11. As I saw the great white throne and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there was found no place for them. So the heavens and earth, they fled away, and there was no place for them. They disappeared. See? The Christians are right. Christianity got it right. A literal interpretation of Matthew 5 and 18 is supported in Scripture, in the Tanakh and the Brit Hadashah. As a result, just as the heavens and earth are going to disappear, cease to exist, so will the law. That is the Christian view of Matthew 5 and 18. Let's go to Revelation 21. Next chapter, next door. 21 and verse 1. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were, here we go, passed away, and there was no more sea. You see, it's all over the Bible. The earth and the heavens are going to cease to exist, and so will the law. That is a literal interpretation of Matthew 5 and 18 that Christianity espouses, teaches, and promotes. And as a result, you don't have to follow the Torah or the law. You're no longer required. Okay? Now, that was from the literal interpretation from the Tanakh and the Brit Hadashah. Now, let's look at the rainbow. The rainbow, y'all. Can someone type in and tell us what was the covenant or the promise of the rainbow for? Why was there a promise of the rainbow? Because this is showing us the opposite view. Okay? What I'm going to show you right now is not a literal interpretation, but a figurative interpretation of Matthew 5 and 18. Okay. A figurative interpretation of Matthew 5:18 says the heavens and earth are not going to literally cease to exist. Okay. So let's take a look. Let's take a look. Are y'all with me? Are there any questions? Because I know I may be going a little bit fast. Are there any questions? I don't see any questions. Everybody understanding? Put a 1 in the chat if you are understanding the words that are coming out of my mouth. Put a 2 in the chat if you're like, a little bit. Put a 3 if you're like, I'm completely lost. I have no idea what you're talking about. Hopefully I don't see any 3s. So again, a 1 if you understand, a 2 if you're like, a little bit, a 3 if you're like completely lost. All right. So let's go to these scriptures right now. Again, we're going to look at scriptures that's supporting that the heavens and earth will not be literally destroyed. Okay. So I put here destroyed, but not. You're going to see once we get into these scriptures. So let's go to Genesis chapter 6. Genesis 6. And let's look at verse 5 through 7. Genesis 6, verses 5 through 7. Okay. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth. Not that the earth was wicked or the heavens were wicked. He saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. You see that? Verse 6. And it repented the Lord that he had made the heavens and the earth. It repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart, y'all. So it did not grieve him that he had made the earth and the heavens. It grieved him that he had made man. Because every thought in verse 5 was, and every imagination of the thoughts of his heart were only evil continually. Verse 7. And the Lord said, I will destroy the heavens and the earth. I will destroy man who I have created from the face of the earth. Both man and beast and creeping things and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. Do you see that distinction, guys? Now, this is arguing for Matthew 5:18, not being literal, but being figurative, being an idiom. And I'm going to go back and explain the idiom. I'm going to go back and explain it in detail. Okay. So let's go to Genesis chapter 7. Okay. Genesis 7. This is all the flood narrative. Oh, wait. We forgot to go to, hold on. Go back to 6. And we need to go to verses 11 and 13, 11 through 13. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So watch this. This will appear like it's saying the physical earth was corrupt. That's impossible. How can a tree or dirt be corrupt? No. He said the earth was corrupt because it was filled with violent individuals. Come on, go with me here. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt. Why? For all flesh had corrupted the earth. No. Had corrupted his way upon the earth. Come on, go with me, y'all. Verse 13. And God said to Noah, the end of the earth is to come. No. The end of all flesh is come before me. For the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy the earth. I will destroy them with the earth. Now, some people may look at this and say, oh, see, he's going to destroy them with the earth. No, that's not what he's saying. He's going to use the earth. Come on and go with me here. He's going to use his creation to destroy them. That's what the text is saying. Are y'all with me? Now, that's not a twist of the scripture. That's just simple comprehension. Because if you look at the flood, narrative, if you noticed, he used the actual earth to destroy all living beings that were on the face of the earth. He used the water. He used the mountains. He used the water underneath, or the earth underneath the water. He said, I will destroy them with the earth. Now see, here's a comprehension deficit. If you look at that phrase and you say that I will destroy them with the earth, as saying I'm going to not only destroy them, but I'm going to destroy the earth also, I want to suggest and recommend that you look at a commentary, that you get a second opinion, because that is not what the text is saying, especially when you look at the flood narrative. Okay? And everything that we've read so far. Let's go to chapter 7. That was very important. I'm glad I didn't miss that. Chapter 7, verse 21. Again, this is in support. I'm giving you scriptures from the Torah. Do I have any from the Tanakh or from the, yep. And, okay, we got a lot of scriptures to go. Okay, so let's get through this. 7:21 through 23. And all flesh died that moved upon the face of the earth, both fowl, cattle. Okay, let's go to verse 22. And let's see, all in whose nostrils was the breath of life, of all that was in the dry land died. And every living substance was destroyed, which was upon the face of the earth, of the ground, both man, cattle, creeping things, the fowl of the heavens. They were destroyed from the earth. And Noah only remained alive, and they that were with him in the ark. Okay. Let's go to chapter 8. Now, again, these scriptures are supporting a figurative understanding, and Matthew 5:18 as an idiom, not literal, but figurative. Okay. 8, let's go to verse 13 and verse 17. And it came to pass in the 601st year, in the first month, the first day of the month, the waters were dried up off of the earth. Wait a minute. I thought the earth was going to be destroyed, cease to exist, disappear. And Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the face of the ground was dry. Whoa. Why is the earth still in existence? Why didn't it disappear? Let's go to verse 17. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both fowl and of the cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the what? Wait a minute. That they may breed abundantly, where? In the earth. And be fruitful and multiply, where? Upon the earth. Hold up. You mean the earth was not destroyed? It didn't disappear? It didn't cease to exist? Let's go to chapter 9. Chapter 9, verse 1 and 2. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. That didn't disappear. That didn't cease to exist. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon where? The earth again? and upon every fowl of the air, and upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand they will be delivered. Let's go to verse 7. And you be fruitful and multiply. Bring forth abundantly in the earth that did not disappear, that did not cease to exist. And God spoke unto Noah and his sons with them, saying, and I, behold, I will establish my covenant with you and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl of the air, the cattle, and every beast of the earth, with you, from all that goeth out of the ark to every beast of the earth. I will establish, look at this, y'all. I will establish my covenant with you. Neither shall, watch this, neither shall all flesh be cut off anymore. How? By the waters of a flood. Neither shall there be any more flood to destroy the earth. Now watch this. The earth did not cease to exist. It did not disappear. That's obvious. But he's saying, I'm not going to destroy the earth anymore by the way of flood. And God said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, my rainbow in the cloud, and it shall be for a token of the covenant between me and the earth. He made a covenant with the earth, y'all. Come on and go with me. Let's keep going. Let's keep going, because we got, see, I'm not, so we got to keep going. We got to keep going because we got a lot to cover. We got a lot to cover. Psalm 104. Okay, so here are the scriptures right here. Psalm 104, verse 5. I'm going to call them out so you can write them down. Psalm 104. And we're going to go to verse 5. Okay, you can read verses 1 through 5. For the sake of time, I'm just going to read verse 5. Who laid the foundation of the earth, that it should not be removed forever. He laid the foundation of the earth that shall not be removed forever. All right. So these are scriptures in the Tanakh that I'm giving you in support. I've already given you, how many have I given you so far? I've given you 4 in Genesis. Now we have 1 in Psalm. Let's go to Ecclesiastes now. Ecclesiastes. Verse 1, chapter 1, verse 4. One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh. But the earth abideth, what? Forever. The sun also ariseth, and the sun goeth down, and hasteneth to his place where he arose. Interesting. Interesting. The earth abideth forever. You see that? Let's go to Psalm 93. Psalm 93. And we're going to look at verse 1. The Lord reigneth. He is clothed with majesty. The Lord is clothed with strength, wherewith he hath girded himself. If the world also is established, that it cannot be moved. It says the world also established, that it cannot be moved. Okay. Interesting, right? Psalm 96 and verse 10. Oh, we're getting it in tonight, y'all, because we are challenging the Christian understanding of Matthew 5 and 18 whether it's literal or figurative. If it is literal, then they're right. The law will be done away with. But if it is figurative, if Matthew 5:18 is an idiom, we gotta have a conversation. We got to reconvene at the table. Psalm 96, verse 10. Say among the heathen that the Lord reigneth. The world also shall be established, and it shall not be moved. There's again, he shall judge the people righteously. Again, the world is going to be established, and it shall not be moved. It will not cease to exist. It will not disappear, vanish away, or pass away. Let's go to our last one, Psalm 119, which is one of my favorite passages of scripture. Psalm 119, and we're going to look at verse 90. Thy faithfulness is unto all generations. Thou hast established the earth, and it abideth. Okay. More support for the figurative interpretation of Matthew 5:18. Okay. Not the literal interpretation. Now, we went through the Tanakh. What about the Brit Hadashah? Let's go to Luke 16 and 17. Are y'all writing these down? So I know it's a lot of scriptures. But again, we got to show and prove tonight. Luke 16. Again, read this in context, y'all. For the sake of time, I don't have time to read it in context. However, let's look at verse 16. Yeah, actually 16 and 17. The law and the prophets were until John. Since that time, the kingdom of God is preached, and every man presseth into it. And it is easier for heaven and earth to pass than for one tittle of the law to fail. Oh, now that's saying something quite different. It's saying it is easier for heaven and earth to pass than one jot and tittle to fail. One jot and tittle of the law to fail. It doesn't say, it's not saying that heaven and earth are going to pass, but it's saying it's easier than for one jot and one tittle. And we've already read scriptures that said that heavens and the earth are established. But then we also read scriptures that said it's going to be destroyed. So the Bible's contradicting itself, right? Let's go to Romans chapter 8. Are y'all with me tonight? This is a good Friday night teaching, y'all. Because we're laying down. We're chopping legs. Okay? We're dealing with the legs tonight. We going low tonight. Romans 8:19. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same in hope. Watch this. Because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation, heaven and earth, all living things, groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. So you see that in verse 22, the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. Hold on, let's see. I thought I read something. Okay. Verse 23. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body. Okay, so there's going to be a redemption of, not a destruction, but a redemption, not only of our bodies, but the whole creation. A redemption, not a destruction. Come on, go with me. Colossians. Let's see what Colossians has to say here. Colossians chapter 1. And verse 16. For by him, Yeshua, were all things created that are in heaven and that are on the earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. Verse 17. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist, or they're held together. Okay, not destroyed, but held together. Let's go to Hebrews. Hebrews chapter 1. And you know what? Let's just read 1 through 3. God, who in sundry times and divers manners spoke in times past unto the fathers by the prophets, hath in these last days spoken to us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds. Verse 3. Who being the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person, and upholding, here it is, upholding all things by the word of his power, when he had by himself purged our sins, sat down at the right hand of the majesty on high. You see that? Upholding all things, the heavens, the earth, everything. That's not an exegesis. Sorry, that's not an eisegesis. I'm not reading that into it in the context of chapters of Hebrews 1 and 3. 1 through 3, I should say. Upholding all things. Revelation 21. Verse 1. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Now, people could use this verse to suggest that the old heavens and earth are going to disappear, cease to exist, and then there's going to be a completely brand new. Okay. Now, based on all the scriptures, you're going to have to come to that conclusion. But based on, and you go back and you study these things, does new mean brand new, different, or does new mean renewed, transformed? Okay. So I knew heaven and new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth, here it is, were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, watch this, coming down from God out of heaven. Well, if he saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem coming down, where was it going to come down and touch down at? If the heavens and earth are going to disappear, vanish, cease to exist, where is this holy city, New Jerusalem, that is coming down out of heaven? Where's it going to touch down? If you go with a literal interpretation. However, if you go with a figurative interpretation of Matthew 5 and 18, then you have a completely different understanding of the new heaven and new earth. It's a renewed heaven, a renewed earth. Like our bodies are going to be renewed. Okay. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, behold, I will make all things new. You see that? He's going to renew all things. He's going to make them new. And he said unto me, write, for these words are true and faithful. So family, pass away in Matthew 5:18. Does it literally mean to perish, to disappear, cease to exist, come to an end, no longer be there? Is that what it means? Okay. What side are you on? Destroyed or not destroyed? The heavens and earth, destroyed, cease to exist, disappear, or not destroyed, but renewed. Okay, so that was the literal. Let's look at the figurative interpretation. Let's look at the figurative interpretation of Matthew 5:18. So we have to ask this question. What is the evidence for a figurative interpretation? How can we determine if it's figurative as opposed to literal? When do we employ the figurative understanding and as opposed to the literal understanding? Remember, the genre, it is a narrative. So it is a possibility that it could be literal or figurative. So let's get into it. The phrase in Matthew 5:18, until heaven and earth pass away, based on my studies, y'all, I come to the conclusion that it is indeed an idiom, because that's what I believe based on the study. Based on everything I've showed you tonight, it's an idiom. The idiom, until heaven and earth passes away, is used, again, you may want to write this down, to emphasize the permanence of God's word and its teachings. And this is done by Christian scholars who believe in Christianity. This is not a Jewish understanding. This is the Christian understanding. The Christian understanding, and I'm going to show you some of their scholars, is that Matthew 5:18 is not literal, but it is indeed an idiom. D.A. Carson, in his commentary, the Expositor's Bible commentary, this is what he says. The until clause of verse 18 should say does not imply, I made a typo, sorry, does not imply that the law will pass away. Rather, they refer to the inviolability of the law. Heaven and earth is a merism for the universe, the created order. D.A. Carson. So who is D.A. Carson, y'all? Let's see who D.A. Carson is. You can look him up on your own. But Donald Arthur Carson is a Canadian evangelical theologian. He's a distinguished emeritus professor of New Testament at Trinity Evangelical Divinity School. And he's the president and co-founder of the Gospel Coalition. Yes, it's from Wikipedia. If you have a problem with that source, hey, it's just a biography. You can go to a more credible source. Okay. But I can guarantee he was born in 1946. He's 77. He was born in Montreal, Canada. I can guarantee his spouse is Joy. Her name is Joy. They were married in 75. You can pull their public records on that. So all the other information is credible, but not his scholarship. Come on, guys. Okay. So that's D.A. Carson. He says, well, what is inviolability and a merism? Okay. So let's go to inviolability. The fact or quality of being safe or protected from attack, infringement, destruction, or interference. So what he is saying, the Christian scholar, he is saying that they refer to the law as what? The law is protected from attack, infringement, destruction, or interference. That's what the Christian scholar is saying. The scholars that Christians believe is saying the complete opposite of what Christians believe. So the ultimate question is, where are you getting your literal interpretation of Matthew 5 and 18? Are you making it up? Or do you have to use a literal interpretation to fit your doctrine that the law is no longer relevant? Now, heaven and earth is a merism for the universe or the created order. What is a merism? According to Wikipedia, it's a rhetorical device, okay, which says and tells us that is an idiom or a figure of speech. Now, I gave you the difference between a figure of speech and an idiom earlier. I'm not going to go through that again. Just rewind the tape. Okay, so a merism is a combination of two contrasting parts, heaven and earth, of the whole, referring to the whole. So heaven and earth they're parts, two contrasting parts of God's creation, the whole. Come on and go with me, referring to the whole. So when he says, until heaven and earth passes away, he's saying until my creation passes away. And so that's not literal, but it's an idiom. Again, referring to, as D.A. Carson says, it does not imply that the law will pass away, but rather it refers to the inviolability or the permanence of the law. Okay? And the idiom, heaven and earth, until heaven and earth pass away, is used to emphasize the permanence of God's word and its teachings. Christian scholars are saying this, not Hebrew scholars, although I do have Hebrew scholars to confirm this, but I didn't want to use them because they would say, oh, you're just being biased. You're only using people that agree with you. I'm using Christian scholars who we would think would agree with what Christians are saying today, but the Christian scholars are not. Now, I'm going to show you some interesting things as well. Let's keep going, though. So we have D.A. Carson, but we also have Craig S. Keener. In his IVP Bible background commentary, New Testament, he notes, Jews sometimes use heaven and earth as a merism. Aha, that's the second confirmation, a figure of speech, listing two extremes to encompass everything between them for the whole universe. Jesus thus declares that the law is permanent. Come on and go with me. Indestructible. Thank you, Sister Ben, for that. Okay. Sister Ben says it's indestructible. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's keep going. So we told you what inviolability is, and merism. So wait a minute. I didn't tell you who Craig Keener was, right? Again, I just did a light, brief search of Keener. He's an American Protestant theologian, a biblical scholar and professor of New Testament at Ashbury Theological Seminary. Okay? He went to Duke University, Assemblies of God Theological Seminary, Central Bible College. All right? But he is a scholar and professor of New Testament at Ashbury Theological Seminary. Okay? You can look up Ashbury to see if they're liberal or conservative. You know, what is their doctrinal statement, but I guarantee they believe in the Trinity. They believe in the creeds. They believe in all the Christian doctrine that Christians typically would have subscribed to. Your scholars are not agreeing with you. Okay. D.A. Carson, well known. Craig Keener, not as known. Okay. R.T. France. He says in the Gospel of Matthew, his New International Commentary on the New Testament, he states, the formula until heaven and earth pass away, it echoes Old Testament language now this is a Christian scholar. He says it echoes Old Testament language for the permanence of God's words and purposes. It thus declares that God's law is as permanent as the created order. Come on and go with me, y'all. Now, who is R.T. France? Let's check him out. Again, this is just a light search just to see his credentials. Richard Thomas France, known as R.T. France or Dick France, which is weird, was a New Testament scholar. I think did he pass away? Yeah, he passed away in 2012. Was a New Testament scholar and an Anglican cleric. He was principal of Wycliffe Hall, Oxford University, from 89 to 95. He also worked for the London School of Theology. So these Christian scholars are disagreeing with what Christians are saying about Matthew 5:18 today, that it is literal. They're saying, no, it's not literal, but it is indeed an idiom. Are y'all with me? If you're not, come on and go with me. Now, we hear these claims from these scholars. What's the supporting evidence for the use of merism in Israelite culture? Now, remember what merisms are. Okay. According to Wikipedia, it's a rhetorical device or a figure of speech in which a combination of two contrasting parts of the whole refer to the whole. So heaven and earth are two contrasting parts that refer to the whole of creation or the created order. And it's referring to, when they say the heavens and earth, it's referring to the created order. Now, is there any scriptural support for the use of merism in Israelite culture? Okay, because remember, idioms are culture specific. You have to be a part of the culture to understand idioms. Figures of speech, you don't. These are idioms that you need to be a part of a particular culture to understand them. So, in Yeshua's Sermon on the Mount, who's he speaking to? Who's his audience? Israelites. They would have understood this merism of taking two contrasting things, referring to the whole of something else. So what's the evidence? Are these Christian authors correct? These Christian scholars? Well, let's check it out. Well, here's a Israelite source, Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. We're taking two contrasting parts, referring to the whole of the created order of the worlds. Okay. Deuteronomy 4:26. I call heaven and earth, two contrasting parts, as witnesses against you today. He was calling the whole created order to witness against the Israelites this day, that you will quickly perish from the land. Okay. If you don't continue to follow the law. Deuteronomy 30:19. This day I call again heaven and earth, the heavens and the earth, two contrasting parts referring to the whole of creation, as witnesses against you that I have set before you life and death, blessed and cursed. Choose you this day. Oh, wait a minute. He gave them a choice of whether or not they were able to follow the Torah or the law or not. They had a choice. Interesting. Very interesting, right? Let's continue. So we have biblical evidence. We have 3 witnesses. Now let's look at the Babylonian Talmud. Now, for those of you who say, oh, he's going to the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, that's corrupt. Hold on. Slow up. Hold up. Personally, I would equate the Babylonian Talmud. So, well, hold on. I would equate the Mishnah, the Talmud, and the Midrash. I would equate those to be similar, not the same, but similar to the Church Fathers' commentary. Okay. Now, I can do a whole lesson on the similarities of the Church Fathers and the Mishnah, Midrash, and the Talmud. That's not for tonight. But let's go to, if you will, and again, I recommend that all of you, if you read the Church Fathers, you got to get into I call them the church daddies. Sorry, the church baby daddies. But that's just me. That could be biased, but hey, we all have a little bit. Anyway, let's go to the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, Chagiga 12a. So we're going to go to the Talmud and then scroll down to Chagiga 12a. Okay, now, this is a must, you guys. When reading the oral tradition, you have to know the Hebrew. Notice the darkened words. If you don't know the Hebrew, then you're going to read all of this. So let me give you a little hint for those of you who are wondering and who oppose reading oral tradition. But you don't oppose reading the church fathers. You hold the church fathers up, but you bring the Talmud. Let me just get into it. That's just one of my pet peeves that we can have a conversation about. Unlike the church fathers, to understand the oral tradition, you got to know Hebrew. You got to be able to read it. Okay? That's one reason why people don't understand the oral tradition is because they don't read Hebrew. Okay? So let me give you a hint. If you notice, when you're reading the oral tradition, the highlighted or bolded parts of the reading is what the Hebrew actually says. Okay? The parts that are not highlighted, it's what's been added by Jewish authors that came along maybe 300 to 600 years after the original Hebrew was written. Okay? So let's see. What did they say about until heaven and earth passes away? Or these two contrasting parts, this merism. It says, now that it is derived from one end of the heavens to the other. Why do I? Since the day that God created man upon the earth. Okay, so it's giving you the understanding that it's from one end of the heavens to the other, referring to these two different parts, referring to the whole. Okay, the Gemara answers that this phrase teaches us something else. According to Rabbi Elazar, as Rabbi Elazar said, the height of Adam, the first man, reached from the ground to the skies, from the heavens, or from the earth to the heavens. As it is stated, since the day that God created man upon the earth, and from one end of the heavens, okay, when he sinned, the Holy One, blessed be he, placed his hand upon him and diminished him. And it is stated, you fashioned me behind and before, and I laid your hand upon me. Okay, so if we go back up, it says that Adam, the first man, reached from the ground to the skies, from the heavens to the earth. Okay, let's keep going. Rav Yehuda said that Rav said, the size of Adam, the first man, was from one end of the world to the other. As it is stated, since the day that God created man upon the earth, and from one end of the heavens to the other. Okay, so the Talmud is giving you these different conversations and opinions on certain things that are written in the Tanakh. All right, and so these rabbis are giving an understanding of the meaning of the difference between the heavens and the earth. So there is evidence that this discussion of this idiom did take place. And everything that these rabbis are saying, they understood because they were from a culture that was familiar to them, and they understood this merism. Okay. And so I just wanted to show you that the Babylonian Talmud, the section discusses the creation of heaven and earth, implying the representation of the totality of creation. Okay. Now, here's our guy again, your Christian scholar. Watch what he says. And again, this is in his IVP Bible background commentary of the New Testament. He notes again, this Christian scholar is noting that Jewish people sometimes use heaven and earth as a merism, a figure of speech, or an idiom listing two extremes to encompass everything between them for the whole of the universe. Okay, here's another Christian scholar, David Istone Brewer, in Traditions of the Rabbis from the era of the New Testament, discusses how rabbis often use heaven and earth to refer to the entire created order. Now, who is David Istone Brewer? Okay. Again, this is just a brief little search that I did. David Istone Brewer is a senior research fellow in rabbinics and the New Testament at Tyndale House, Cambridge, and a member of the divinity faculty at the University of Cambridge and the British Association of Jewish Studies. So, although his subject area is in Jewish studies, which gives him the authority to speak on these cultural aspects the Israelites had by using merisms, he's a Christian scholar. Okay? So I'm not using Israelite scholars to prove this. I'm using your own scholars that's showing and proving that they disagree with your interpretation of Matthew 5 and 18 by saying that is a literal interpretation. These scholars, which are legitimate scholars, are saying they disagree with you, that it is indeed an idiom. This is where we are with it. Now, that was the figurative interpretation. So, I have a question, y'all. Is the phrase in Matthew 5 and 18, until heaven and earth pass away, indeed an idiom? Is it an idiom? Or is it literal? That was the first leg that I believe I took out because I believe it was an idiom. And if it is an idiom, then it is establishing the permanence of the law, not the destruction. As Yeshua said, I didn't come to destroy it. Now watch this. But he came to fulfill it. If it is literal, and we're going to look at what destroy means, not today, but tomorrow. If it is literal, Christians, you got a lot of explaining to do. Let's go to Hebrews. What time is it? 9? Look, it's a Friday night. What y'all doing tonight? We partying over here. I got a few more slides. I just want to get this second leg in. I want to introduce it. And tomorrow I will pick up right here. Let me introduce it. Let's look at the second leg. Hebrews 8, 7 and 13. Now, it seems like Christians only focus on, when they're talking about the new covenant, it seems like they only focus on verses 7 and 13. So let's take a look. Hebrews. I said it seems like they only focus. Hebrews chapter 8. Now, we went over this earlier when I introduced you to the first and second leg. This is the second leg. Again, it seems like Christians only focus on verses 7 and 13. Look what verse 7 says. For if the first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for a second one. So Christians would interpret this verse by saying that there was something wrong with the first covenant. And the first covenant was the Torah. It was the law given at Mount Sinai. Exodus chapter 20. Something was wrong with that. And that's why we have a new covenant. Okay, and then they say, it seems like, again, they jump to verse 13, which says, in that he saith a new covenant. So in other words, the reason why there's a new covenant is because something was wrong with the old one. Something is wrong with the law. Okay? And so he saith, a new covenant hath he made, the first old. Now that which decayeth, the first covenant, or the law, and waxeth old, first covenant, or the law, is ready to vanish away. But again, it seems like they only focus on verse 7 and 13 without considering, watch this, verses 8 and 10. So if you only look at verse 7 and 13, what conclusion will you come to about the law or the first covenant? Of course, you're going to say that it was done away with. And your interpretation is going to be driven by looking at verses 7 and 13. Your interpretation of Matthew 5 and 18 is going to be driven by the fact that you believe the first covenant, which is the law, should vanish, should go away, because something was wrong with it. Okay? But let's also consider verses 8 and 10. Watch what verse 8 and 10 says, guys. It says, for finding fault with them. So let's go back to the first verse 7. For if the first covenant had been faultless, then should no place have been sought for a second. Finding fault with them. Who is the them? Who is the them? Let's keep reading. He saith, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Listen, the them is the house of Israel and the house of Judah, y'all. It's the Israelites. So who did he find fault with? He didn't find fault with the first covenant. He found fault with them. Who? The house of Israel and the house of Judah. He clearly says it. He did not find fault with the covenant. He found fault with them. Watch what verse 10 says. For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my laws in their minds and write them in their hearts. Oh, now we're getting a little bit better understanding. If the law is going to be done away with, how is he going to put them in our hearts and our minds? The old covenant, watch this. The fault, here's the fault, guys. The fault was that the old covenant was external and on stone. Come on, did y'all write that down? The fault was that the old covenant, the laws, Exodus chapter 20, it was external because it was written on stones, tablet stones. Verse 10 says the new covenant is not going to be written on stone, but it's going to be internal, written in the hearts and the minds of believers. Come on and go with me, y'all. I'm going to pick up right here tomorrow morning at 10, and we're going to take a deep dive into the old and the new covenant. I'm going to show and prove that there was nothing wrong with the covenant per se, but there was something wrong with the Israelites. He says in verse 8, I found fault with them for finding fault with them because the covenant was external. It was external and it was written on stone tablets instead of being written in their hearts, like he says. So watch this. It's not necessarily the covenant that's changing. It's where the covenant is written. Come on, y'all. You got to go with me here. You listen, you have to go with me here. You have to go with me here. You can disagree, that's fine, but let's talk about it. The problem, the fault is where the laws are written, not the law itself. Because he says in verse 10, I'm going to fix it. He says, I'm not going to write it on stone anymore. I'm going to write the laws in their minds and in their hearts. Blessings, shalom, Shabbat shalom. What a way to bring in shalom, y'all. We are excited. I'm excited, y'all. I'm excited. We're going to deal with the rest of this tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. We're going to start right here. We already knocked out the first leg. We're going after the second leg. I kind of gave you a hint. We haven't broken the leg. We haven't chopped it off. We fractured it a little bit. Okay? We bruised it a little bit. But we're going to lop it off tomorrow. Join me, 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Blessings. Blessings, y'all. Any questions, comments, concerns? Anything that was unclear? I got a few minutes. It's only 9:20. I'll go to 9:30. Any questions? Any comments? All right. Shabbat shalom to you and your family too. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 10 a.m. right back here. I will send this link out. But if you come back to this page, go ahead and like and subscribe. If you were blessed tonight by this lesson and you want more content like this, go ahead and subscribe. Ring that bell because I'm coming. Hold on. I'm coming, y'all. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Blessings. Let's see. Do we have a comment? Blessings. Blessings. Blessings.